Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I am your host. And today I have a guy on the show by the name of Dr. Jeff Radford. Dr. Jeff sent me his book, and he's friends with Don Green and some really amazing friends of mine. And I can't wait to hear this guy's story. So do me a favor and share this out. No matter where you are, go ahead and share this out so everybody in your sphere of influence can jump on here and listen to Dr. Jeff's story. So share it out and we will be right back. See you in a minute. All right, we are back, and I see that my mother-in-law is watching over on Instagram, so we're going to have to behave ourselves. Let me bring Dr. Jeff on the show. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ken. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And since your mother-in-law is watching, I will definitely stay straight here.
Good. I didn't have concern about you. It's more about me. So Jeff, I don't know a lot about you, which is what I like. I like to interview people I don't know a lot about, so I can learn more about them and share that with my audience. So, let's just start with, where were you born and raised? Where did it all begin?
Yeah, interesting story. So I was born in a little place called Asheboro, North Carolina. And I have moved, Ken, when I was young, like 7 or 8 times. My dad was a pastor in North Carolina. And anytime we had a family meeting, we were getting ready to move. So I knew when the family meeting was called as a boy. Excuse me. I knew it was a family meeting that my dad was getting ready to announce we were going to the next church.
Wow.
So moved around, changed schools, all in Eastern North Carolina area. And then when I was around 12 years old, I moved to the state of Virginia, and I've resided in Virginia ever since. Won't tell my age, but yeah, I guess I will tell my age. I'm 49 now, so I've been in Virginia quite a long time, and it's home for me.
Wow. I love Virginia. Virginia is such a beautiful state.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful state.
Yeah, I live right here just on the Tennessee border, Ken. Little place called Bristol, Virginia, right in the mountains here. So we have all the seasons, and it's just wonderful people.
And it's gorgeous, especially as fall starts setting in.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous in that area. So
absolutely
been through there many, many times. So you grew up a pastor's son. And how many kids were there?
So I have 2 other brothers. My older brother and I really grew up together. And then my younger brother, I think, was a surprise because he was 13 years younger than me. And all of a sudden I'm 13 years old and there's another boy coming to the family. So it's really my 3 sons for our family here. Yeah.
So you definitely that's definitely a surprise.
Yeah.
Nobody plans that, I don't think. So growing up as a and I don't what denomination? Just
Church of God denomination, headquartered out of Cleveland, Tennessee. Church of God.
Church of God, which is a Pentecostal church.
It is, yes.
That's the church I grew up in
Ohio.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
That's what I grew up in. So which is a very strict church, by the way. So talk about what it's like growing up as a pastor's son, and that had to come with some somewhat strict rules and regulations, I would imagine.
Yeah. I think really at the time I probably was disgruntled about it, quite honestly, because there were a lot of things that maybe my friends were doing that I couldn't partake in. Couldn't go to the movie theater. Certain things about my clothes that I was restricted on. I think, and plus every eye's on you, right? So you're part of the pastor's home.
Yep.
And if you act out, the church people know about it, and they start to even maybe question about the ability of your own dad to be the leader of the church if you can't lead your own home.
Right.
So I knew that there was some pressure surrounding that. But, the more that I've grown up in life and had my own family and had two children of my own, I've become more appreciative that my family, my mom and dad, were doing what they knew to do. And that was they gave me a loving surrounding. They were trying to help guide me through life with the best that they knew. And so I've appreciated that strict lifestyle even more. I may be more relaxed, obviously, as an adult than maybe they were, but
Yeah.
that's what they knew. And I knew that they did it out of love, which was a great place and something we'll talk about today.
So when you, I, so I knew some kids growing up. I didn't say I was a good church member because I definitely was. We'd get on the church bus and then get to the church and sneak out the back door and skip church and go to the local stores and stuff. But we won't talk about that anyway. So you know, I knew some kids, boys and girls, growing up that their fathers were leaders of churches or pastors or whatever, and there was a certain amount of them. I would say a big percentage of the ones that I knew that rebelled.
Hmm.
They kind of rebelled as teenagers. Did you ever find yourself doing that?
Not necessarily. I think
Okay.
obviously there were things I had questions about, and can I say that I lived the best lifestyle according to the rules my mom and dad gave me? No, I mean transparently, no.
Yeah.
I was curious as well, growing up as a teenager.
Yeah.
However, I never did leave the foundation of what they taught me,
Right.
and never went to like a far corner of rebellion by any means. And currently, Ken, I'm an assistant pastor in a Church of God.
Right.
I work in healthcare primarily, but I continue in the church and serve in the church. It's very important to me to do that. It's a part of my life, and
Right.
so I'm just so appreciative of that. So even though there was some curiosity surrounding it, I still live by God's grace, and He has been so faithful and good to me. So I'm very appreciative of how I grew up.
That
I,
is
I
so
could have done
amazing.
some less moving. I will be honest with you there, but,
Right. Right.
but I think it prepared me in leadership to be able to talk to anybody. Right,
Right.
I had to. So
Yeah.
a lot of it, I've looked back in a positive way
Yeah.
to really make sense of it, and I've seen how those things have been applied to my life now, and it really was and has been beneficial.
Amen. Amen. So talk about when you go through all of this as a kid, as you're growing up. Did you have any challenges that were significant or life changing as a kid, as a teenager?
Not necessarily. I think that the challenges came as I started to get older as a teenager because I had been so sheltered. I thought life was in this little bubble and everything was good. I mean, think about it, Kim. When I was growing up, and I don't know how old you are, but maybe when you were growing up, we had three channels on the TV, and
Yep.
my dad would
I'm older than you are, Jeff. So
my dad would say when I was turning the antenna outside, he would let me know when the signal was coming into the best. So
been there, done that. Yep.
right, so
Yep.
so very sheltered, and this
Yep.
is what life is like.
Yeah.
But then as I started to get older and realize this is not what the world is like,
Mm,
I think it was quite a surprise for me to
yeah.
look at some of the things that we dealt with when I was growing up, but also to where we are today, which is on a whole different level than where it was when I was growing up. So, I don't think there was any major significant events necessarily. It was really just trying to figure out that there was more than the bubble that I had been part of,
Yeah.
and how do I navigate through that?
Right. Right.
Whether that's through the school setting in high school. I was bullied as a in high school, so I had to deal with that, and this didn't even talk about it because I was fearful of the
Yeah.
person that was not only just me. There was other students that he would just be mean and aggressive to. So I had to figure out how do I navigate that. So a lot of that was internal navigation for my own self, which again has been beneficial as I've grown up through life. Is sometimes just having to navigate on my own without really
Yeah.
reaching out to people.
Right. Right. So when you graduated from high school, where did you go from? Did you go right into college?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
So my mom and dad went to another church,
Oh,
and I had I had 2 months left to graduate high school, and they were moving to another church.
wow.
And I said, I'm staying. And so I
Yeah.
finished high school out to where I was in a little town called Big Stone Gap, Virginia. So
Okay.
shout out to those people, which is near Wise, Virginia, which you
Yeah.
both know. You and I know Don Green's from there and
Yeah.
Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
So, when I graduated high school, I finished school, and then I went to college there in Big Stone. And really, my healthcare career, Ken, started in Big Stone Gap on as a member of our local rescue squad there. I was a junior member in high school,
Wow.
and I wanted to join because my dad was a member. I wanted to spend more time with him in that area, so we would have more things in common.
Yeah.
But quickly, I figured out healthcare was the realm that I needed to be in because I love serving people and taking care of people.
Wow.
So we had one car, and that was my dad's car, and he did church business with the car. So I would ride on a 10-speed bicycle when I first started in healthcare through the streets of Big Stone Gap, Virginia, when my radio went off that there was a call, and I was going as fast as I could on that bicycle to get to the rescue squad building. So that's
Wow.
really how service started for me in that small town in Big Stone Gap. But I did stay there to continue the point, and I went to a local community college because while being a member of the rescue squad, and this is what God does, He puts people in your way that are mentors that you want to emulate and be like.
Yeah.
And I saw another nurse in an ER, local ER at Lonesome Pine Hospital in Big Stone Gap. And I wanted to be just like him. He commanded the scene. He was very knowledgeable. He took great care of patients. So I decided to enter into nursing school. So yes, I
Wow.
stayed in Big Stone Gap. They moved on to another church, and I decided to go to nursing school.
My mother-in-law, who I'm not sure if she's still watching or not, but she's a nurse.
Oh wow,
For yeah,
yeah.
retired nurse, but she was a nurse for many many years. So you went to nursing school and um well, I don't know. Do you meet a lot of male nurses?
No,
Yeah.
we
So
were.
so you're like, well, I was bullied in high school. Let me see if I can pick a career. Maybe I'll get bullied a little bit more.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We were definitely a minority. I think there was a handful, 4 or 5 male students in the class, for
Yeah.
sure. But I'll tell you, this is where I started getting really into that persistence and tenacity and what that was all about, Ken, because number one, we were a minority
Yeah.
in that. When I first applied to nursing school and took the entrance exam, I didn't get into nursing school, but I knew that that was what I wanted to do, and I had a passion to be in that realm of healthcare. So I started doing my undergrad classes that were part of the program, but not actually the nursing classes. I finished those classes, and then I took the entrance exam again, and I got in, but then it was another year. So
Wow.
what was supposed to be a 2-year degree was a 4-year program for me, but I kept on class after class, going
Yeah.
after the goal and really working hard to obtain my nursing degree and then nursing
Wow.
license. So yeah, there were some obstacles surrounding that for sure.
Yeah.
Trying to get into the program, being a minority.
Yeah.
But I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. And I've learned in life that if you put your energy into it and that's your desire and
Yeah.
your purpose and you go after it, then you're going to finish it. So I did that after 4 years, was able to finish that 2-year degree.
That's awesome. And by the way, Grammy is what we call her Grammy. She's still watching.
Oh, Grammy, thank you for your service, Grammy, in healthcare. It's
Yeah.
definitely it's a service for sure.
Well, we have a 14-year-old daughter, so she's still a nurse a lot, quite often. We
Yeah.
call her, "Hey, this is
Yeah.
what's
What do you
going on."
do?
Yeah. So you became a nurse
Yeah,
and RN, I'm assuming
yeah,
RN.
that's right.
And where did you go from there? What did you
I didn't go where I wanted to go, so that
Oh,
I wanted to
where'd
be.
you want to go?
Yeah, I wanted to be in the ICU, the ER. I was that young guy wanting to save those
Yeah.
lives and be in
Yeah.
that high acuity type medicine and
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
And back in those days when I graduated, the local ICUs and ERs were not hiring new graduates. And so my nursing instructors have kind of kidded me through school that You need to start on the med surge floor. And that's where you're going to get your best foundation of patients and learn from that. And I said, I don't want to go to med surge. I want to go to ICU and I want to go to ER. That's where I'm supposed to be.
Right, right,
But when
right,
nobody's hiring, Ken, I bet you go where you need to go, right?
right,
And
right.
so I picked up a job on med surge on midnight shift, starting out and started to work that. And really, what my instructors had poured into me, it was the right place for me because I started to learn a great foundation of how to prepare for and take care of patients that were going through different types of sickness and things that they were dealing with, or whether it was surgery recovery or things like that. So
Yeah,
I stayed in the med surge department for about a year and a half, and ended up transitioning though to day shift because I got off that night shift as quick as I could,
yeah.
but transitioned to day shift, and it was such a beneficial position, and that's really where I got first exposure to leadership as well. I was promoted at that point in time to a charge nurse while I was working the med surge floor.
Okay. So where did things go? Did you stay in that? Was it in a hospital? I
Yeah,
assume.
in a hospital, the same hospital, and that's one of the things that's great about healthcare is there's so many facets to it that you can try to find where your niche is. So I then transferred into the operating room in the same hospital, and I worked in the operating room as a circulating nurse and sometimes as a scrub tech to help the surgeon on those cases. And I
Yeah,
will say, out of healthcare, that was one of my favorite nursing areas was the operating room. It was great to be part of that environment. I was also working on my education at that time as well. So I would work in the operating room. I would have call at night, come back into the hospital and work call.
yeah,
Plus, I was working on my bachelor's degree as well. So I was in school. I was married at the time. So there was a
wow.
lot going on. But it's that thing again, you put the energy into it and the
Yep,
work, and you have the purpose and you go after it.
yeah.
But that operating room was really a blessing for me because I learned a lot being around the surgeons and other nursing staff and just another facet of healthcare.
Grammy says, I love being a nurse. I started on med surge too, then went to labor and delivery. And
Oh,
that's,
wow.
she stayed in labor and delivery, I think,
Okay.
most
Yeah.
of her career.
Yeah.
So that, and for those just joining, that Grammy is my mother-in-law, so be nice to her. She literally stepped off of God's right hand into this world. I'm
That's
not
great.
kidding. She's an
That's great.
amazing, amazing woman.
And she's
So
supporting you, Ken, watching our program today.
I know, right? I
Yeah.
know. She's stalking me, one of the two. I'm kidding. So how long was this, and are you still in nursing, or are you are
Yeah,
you
no, that's great. So I can give you just a summary of things
Yeah.
that I've done to get to where I am now, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was in the operating room, and then I wanted to look at other opportunities. I had just finished or had been working on my bachelor's degree, as I talked about.
Right.
And so then I decided to go into the case management side of how do we work on the utilization review and understand that part of operations. So while in that role at the same hospital, by the way, I continued to work on my education. At first, I thought I wanted to be a doctor of medicine. And another case manager and I had this goal together, said, we're going to go to medical school. And he had some classes ahead of me. And so there were some classes I needed to take. And due to a variety of reasons, I just told him to go on, and I was going to look at what other facets of healthcare I could get into. And the calling of leadership was still there for me. So I decided to go get my master's degree in business administration. And the
Wow.
way things work in our lives is that there are people who are put in our paths that a surgeon I worked with in the OR all of a sudden needed someone to come manage his orthopedic practice.
Right.
And he knew I was working on leadership. And he said, hey, would you be interested in an opportunity to manage my practice? And so that's how I got into leadership. I went over from the hospital on the same campus and managed an orthopedic practice as really my first like outside the hospital type leadership role. And I
Wow.
had 14 full-time employees, and I was green as could be, and I didn't know what I was doing. But influence and servanthood is all part of leadership, and I
Yeah.
quickly figured out by some of the things we'll talk about today that I just valued people, and I
So,
learned the operations part of it.
so you became a practice manager
I did, yeah, for an orthopedic.
for what kind of a doctor? Orthopedic?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um What's funny is I've been in marketing for a long time. My wife and I both, and I've done a lot of medical practice marketing and website development. And how do I say this? Most that I've dealt with in medical practice management are not as humble as you are. They won't admit that they don't know things. They want everybody to think they know everything, they got the answer to everything, and
I
that's
got
just
you.
not the case. You have some humility. I wish you would have been the manager of some of the practices I've dealt with, but
Oh wow,
um,
yeah,
so as and that's a big role, actually, like a medical practice manager. That's a big role
yeah.
in the medical world. So how, when you keep interjecting the leadership stuff, and share with the audience what that means. Like, you're learning all this leadership stuff. You're obviously a leader in the practice. You answer to one guy, and that's the doctor. Um, how did that go for you?
Yeah, yeah. I think what was interesting when I first got that job, there was a comment made that I was too nice for the position,
Yeah,
which is interesting because you kind of talk about the humility that you've picked up on.
yeah, yeah,
That I was too nice for the position. And what I can say, Ken, is that really, as we go through this hour together, we're going to talk about valuing people. And that's really what I'm passionate about.
yeah,
So I took that opportunity with 14 people that I was responsible for to listen to them and actually provide value to them, to show them that they were valued to the organization.
yeah,
And from that, the practice started to grow. We had committed team members there, and they were phenomenal people to work with.
yeah,
It was so old school, and not the fault of the prior practice manager or the orthopedic surgeon who owned the practice, but I was handwriting payroll checks back in the day, and so I had to I had to streamline that and work with an accountant. We started printing checks and kind of
yeah.
getting it back into where it was more modern as far as the practice was concerned. But to your question, is it was really the opportunity for me to kind of test the ability to show people that they're of value, to be humble, to listen, to understand people, while helping make operational decisions based on that information I was getting from the people I was serving. And it worked very, very well, and the practice started to grow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that some of your I don't know if at this point you weren't, I don't think you were a pastor yet, were you, at
No,
that point?
no.
But you had been brought up and certainly observed some pastoral skills that I would imagine you learned to apply in your navigation of this leadership role.
Yeah, it definitely was a part of it, and I think it was while I was actually working at the orthopedic practice, I was called to the ministry,
Wow.
and served my church in
Wow.
Big Stone Gap, Virginia, at the time. So it all was playing together in
Yeah.
regards to just how do I serve other people, and
Right.
in whatever facet it is in. My opinion is that we are called here on earth to serve other people. And so
Yeah.
how can I serve other people? And whether it's in the church or an organization, whatever it may be from, that's the purpose. And so, I was looking for opportunities to do that. And so it was a blessing to be called to the ministry while I was in part of that practice. But really just taking those skill sets that I observed from different leaders, not only from my dad, who had opportunities to grow and become better, from
Right.
people that I worked with on the nursing unit, from the operating room, from case management, from CEOs I worked under.
Yeah.
I observe all those things, and then I start to put together how I think it's best effective to communicate and influence other people.
That's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So how long did you stay with that practice, or are you still with it?
And no, I stayed with that practice, if I recall, about 2 to 3 years, and then unfortunately, both two of the orthopedic surgeons, it was a three orthopedic surgeon practice, left for a variety of reasons, and so that was my first part of a workforce reduction I'd ever been part of. So
Wow.
I actually lost my position there as the practice manager, as well as some other people did as well. The practice had to scale down majorly, but
Yeah.
then I just walked across the parking lot, Ken, and went back to the hospital that I was part of as a nurse.
Right.
and I was able to obtain an administrative role in the C-suite there as administrative director of support services, and I supported about 5 to 6 departments within that same hospital. So the hospital that I started at as a nurse on med surg on night
Right.
shift, I'm now working in administration and helping influence 6 departments for that hospital.
That's incredible.
Yeah, yeah,
That's pretty cool.
yeah,
So where okay, so where did because I in your bio that you sent me, it said that you were eventually you had 9 hospitals, I believe it was
yeah.
that
That's
you,
correct.
so talk about so you start there. Did you eventually become the hospital administrator there?
Yeah, so I'll tell you that story just very
And
quickly.
and talk about where the doctor part came in. Like
Yeah,
you're still a nurse. Now,
yeah,
now there's
still
a
a nurse.
DR in front of your name now.
Yeah, master's degree, and then going to my doctoral program through Regent University out there at Virginia Beach,
Wow.
and studying strategic leadership was my theme that I was going after. And my second workforce reduction came. So the hospital I worked for got acquired by a company in a joint venture type partnership.
Yeah.
And then eventually I was part of a workforce reduction. And so then I found my current company, which is Select Medical, a phenomenal company. I've been with them for 15 years now.
Wow.
And I started there as a chief nursing officer. So I was hired on as a chief nursing officer. And from that, Ken, I've been very blessed with the company because I was a CNO for 3.5 years, promoted to a regional CNO where I supported almost 21 hospitals, around 21 hospitals for the company
Jeez.
at one time for about 2.5 years. But I really wanted to get back into the operations side because I enjoyed it. And the luxury that I had with the company that I work for is that there is such a patient centric focus from my company that even in operations, you still have the ability to be at the bedside and interact with the patients and their families. So I became CEO of the hospital that I started at as CNO here in Bristol, in the Tennessee location, Bristol, Tennessee.
Wow.
I was in that role for a few years and then promoted to regional CEO, where I had 5 hospitals. And then after that, I was promoted to regional vice president, which is current role that I'm in for a little over 2 years, where I support the operations of 9 hospitals for my company.
My goodness. Wow.
I'm
That's
blessed.
a that's a climb up the ladder right there.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel. So, congratulations on that journey. And you still seem to be a nice guy even going through all of that.
Yeah. I
the
think that,
the
yeah,
journey, like sometimes that can make you a little jaded going through
sure.
all of that stuff.
It's all mindset, really. And I
Yeah.
still hang on to the roots of my upbringing. I don't forget that guy that was riding that 10-speed bicycle trying to get to the rescue squad building. I don't forget the experiences that I've had throughout my career. I don't forget working as a CNA when we didn't have any CNAs. As a CEO, I would help the CNAs, whether it be day shift or night shift. And I'm not saying that to highlight me. I'm just talking about the humility part and the calling to serve other people and how we
Yeah.
invest in other people. Because if we're willing to do that as leaders and recognize that we wouldn't be leaders without the people we serve,
Yeah. Yeah.
people talk about the organization, the organization, the organization. And I truly believe in the organization, but I
Right.
also believe in the people in the organization. And when the highlight and the focus is on the people, that's when the organization thrives. That's the whole belief system that I have.
My one of my dearest friends and a client of mine, his father's the founder of Little Giant Ladders, if you've
Hmm.
ever heard of it. Third largest ladder company in the world, and they're out of Salt Lake City. And his dad, who has passed away, but his Doug's dad had a saying that, um, and I'm gonna butcher it. I better not try. Maybe if my wife is watching, she helped with the book. But the it's basically, if you build the man, that's how you build the company. Basically,
Uh,
that's the key to success, is building the individual people on your team, and the
sure.
success of the company follows. And it sounds like that's what you subscribe to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really about it. And have I always subscribed to that? Or there been times in my leadership career where I've made a mistake? I think we all can say we make mistakes in life. for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the person that we've been talking about earlier in your show, I don't think that I've changed tremendously from the value set that I have, from the
Yeah.
ability to care about people and to invest in people. I think I've become more decisive. I know how to get information more than what I did early on in my career. I
Yeah.
know when there's times where you invest in people and you realize it's not working out, and you've got to think about the organization and the health of the organization. I understand that as well. So I think there's times where I talk about you have to be merciful to the organization. But really, at the end of the day, I still feel like I'm the same Jeff. I just think I've matured and grown into my role, and I
Yeah.
understand more about healthcare and how it operates.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's, people need, there's the saying is, people, what's the quote? People will rarely remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And I think that that's so important, especially when you're dealing with, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of employees are in these hospitals that you're, um, running part of the leadership team, whatever the title is. But, you know, you're dealing with individual people that have
Right.
individual problems and individual. Oh, here it is. I knew my wife would come through. Look at that. There she is. If you concentrate on building a business and not the man, you will not succeed. But
Mm,
if you concentrate on building the man, you will achieve both.
that's powerful. Yeah.
Isn't that powerful?
That is powerful. Yeah.
It's from
Yeah.
the book Giant Success. I highly recommend it. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful book.
That's great.
Um, and my wife helped Doug Wing write that book, so it's
Oh, wow.
an amazing book.
Yeah.
So, but when you're dealing with, like, give me a real life example along your path of somebody whose world was falling apart, and you had to intervene and help them get refocused on, because we've all dealt with that, where we're dealing with people and you've got a business to run. I've been an entrepreneur my entire adult life. You've got a business to run, but people bring their individual problems to work and cause chaos and problems within the organization. You've seen it. I mean, unless you're blind. I'm kidding. You've
Yeah.
had to have seen that and dealt with that. So what are some of the things that you've done to help people, correct things going on in their life? I just said this 2 days ago to a client of mine. I said, "Look, there's no, people say, well, there's a difference between professional and personal." And I said, "No, there's actually not." I disagree with that statement. I
Sure.
don't think I think if you have personal issues going on in your life or internally, you're going to affect your job, your career, your work, your business, whatever it is. So, talk
Sure.
about some of the ways that you have faced that and dealt with it.
Yeah, let's get real. Life happens. Life happens. You may be working for an organization, but life still happens. We live in
That's right.
life. And so, whether it be somebody who's gotten an unexpected phone call from a physician to where they've got a major illness that they're facing, and you really work with that team member to say, what do you need from me? How much time do you need off? And the constraints of what we're allowed to give off, of course. But it's being sympathetic to that, going to a doctor's appointment, making sure that they get there so they're not worried about their job, but getting to the doctor's appointment. Or they have a death in their family, whether it be a spouse or someone very, very close to them, to really be sympathetic to that area. I've gone to funeral homes of some of my team members when they've had a significant death of somebody very close to them. I think it's important to show that value to other people. Different things like that. So health issues, whether there's health issues with the family or childcare issues, we try to work through people as much as we can. So
Yeah.
it's being sympathetic to that life occurs outside of the organization, and you're trying to work with them to say, I care about you. And
Right.
and what can I do to help you? Because really what I have found is that when you extend that hand out and show that compassion to other people, then they are committed to your organization and to you. They want to do what they can for you. The influence is there because you've reached out in such a way versus having a hardcore approach to where that's just not going to work and they go on. That's just not appropriate. And you have to kind of weed through people who take advantage of that and people who don't. I mean, people are people as well. And so as a
Yeah.
leader, you try to sort through. But I think number one is that most people want to do good. They want to provide value and they want to be cared about. And so when you
Yeah.
mix that into leadership, into the organization, they become committed to the organization.
Man, that is awesome. What I agree with you on all points.
Sure.
So you we'll fast forward a little bit. I don't know how much we're going to fast forward with this question, but you recently wrote a book. I don't know if
Yeah.
it was recent, right?
Well, I wrote it in my doctoral program in 2007. So this was
Oh,
my final project that I was writing on
okay.
in my doctoral program, and then I decided to publish it. And so it's been out for a while.
Okay.
But
Well, then I recently received this book. How about that?
I'll tell you though, it is still fresh content, Ken, because to me, the society that we live in today has a need for leadership that is not divisive
Yeah.
and leadership that cares about people and not just says the words,
Yeah.
but they prove it in their action.
Amen.
And so, when I look around the world, in whether it be in different facets of the world, whatever that may look like, what I see is a lot of divisiveness,
Yeah.
a lot of hate, a lot of anger that's out there.
Yep.
And what I do know, traveling to my hospitals and being in different communities and going throughout the nation, United States, on my travels, there are still good people. And good people want other good people to interact with, and they want to serve, have a purpose themselves. And if they can connect with the right people that value them, then they're going to go for that. And so I'm finding that even in my own life in the last few weeks, some commonalities that you and I have of meeting people, and they truly want to help and they truly want to serve. So I've got good news for your viewers today. We still live in a good world. We still live in a good country, and there's still hope. But we need to bind together and take some of these principles of love and compassion and forgiveness, which is a powerful word.
Yep.
And if we implement that in our lives and help other people, the world can still change for the good.
I have 22 years sober by the grace of God and a lot
Wonderful.
of hard work. And I'll tell you that the number one for years I tried to do it on my own, and I there was some forgiveness that needed to happen in my life, and I remember talking to a friend way back when I first got sober, and I said, I've tried to forgive that blah blah blah, and this guy said, you need to stop trying to forgive. You're not going to do it. You need to ask God for help. Ask that, whatever you call it. I call it God. Other people call it other things. But whatever that power is that's outside of you, that's greater than you, whatever you refer to it as, like I said, I refer to it as God.
Right.
Ask for the guidance and the ability to forgive others and yourself. Is a big one. Like, forgive yourself. If you forgive yourself, you can change the behavior.
Right.
But so talk a little bit about that, how you've had to help people, because you have to, like, especially as a pastor, you have to be in the place of teaching people to forgive.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Ken, and no disrespect to the church as a whole, not to the church that I am an assistant pastor at Adoration Church here in Bristol, but the church as a whole, there is a concern that we have become a judgmental church, whereas we need to be a restorative church. Because in the examples of the Bible, and in the examples of my life, and I'm hearing from your life, that's what you and I have received. We've received restoration from God, who we're created by, and we're made in His image. But when the church becomes to have an attitude of snubbing their nose at people that need restoration and forgiveness, people will no longer go to the church. And church people within the church will no longer be transparent about what they're struggling with, which causes them to go further in the areas that they're struggling with. I recently talked to my mentor, Dr. Becker, at Regent University. I was up there for a conference, speaking at a conference, and he and I were talking about it, and he said, Jeff, I really think Merciful Leadership is so needed in the church, because we have pastors who are called to preach but not trained to be leaders. And what the problem in that aspect is that they get influenced by judgmental people, and all of a sudden the church is no longer the place to be restored.
Yep.
And we've got to get the church back through actions and through the things I'm talking about, like love and compassion and forgiveness, which is the secret sauce, I call it, of merciful leadership. If we can forgive other people and show that value, that's the examples of God over and over and over in our country, in our world, and in ourselves. And if I've experienced that, why shouldn't I offer that to other people?
Amen. It reminds me of Zig Ziglar. I'll never forget him says, he says, yeah, I'm talking to this old boy, and he says, Zig, I ain't coming down there to that church. It's filled with nothing but a bunch of hypocrites. He said, and I looked at him, I said, well, come on down. We got room for one more.
One more.
Right. But, you know, I mean, I agree with you. I think that there are so many churches, whether it's the Church of God or non-denominational or whatever it is, that are looking down their noses at other people. It's like, dude, do you understand why Jesus died? Like, do you get it? Do you not get that? Like, he didn't do it so you could be a judgmental idiot. Like, he did it so you could be filled with grace. Yeah. And also extend that grace to other people. So
yes, I think that's the example he did give us, and that's what merciful leadership talks about.
Yeah.
And when I was focusing on, because I studied several, thank you. When I studied several, and it's on Amazon, by the way. When I studied several leaders and different types of leadership in school, because that's what my degree was in. You know, transformational, transactional, and different types of leadership. When I started working with Dr. Becker, who was my co-chair on the project, we started talking about, I said, you know, Dr. Becker, there's room for something else. And that is, and I started to list the characteristics of a merciful leader, which would be forgiveness being number one.
Yeah.
And I said, if we actually incorporated these things into an organization or into a church or whatever it may look like,
right,
the power that it can have on the people that we serve would be tremendous. And so, yes, if we're results oriented, that's great. But how do we get the results? It's the people that get the results, right? We can't lose sight that the people get the results. You know, I write about that it's no longer the factory job where somebody's looking out a window with their finger pointing down on people who are just machines and robots who are getting results for the company. That's not the generation that we live in. And we live in a multi-generational workforce. And so how do we value each generation and bring those people together? And I think it's through this concept of merciful leadership where we show it ourselves as leader and extend it. Because if I show it to the leaders I serve and the CEOs that I've influenced, my goal is that that's going to spread to their departments and then their team members. And it just continues. It's a continual effect. But if I'm not that, I'm that transactional kind of autocratic kind of boss, that's also going to be an example to other people. And that's not what I desire in my current job. And that's why I'm trying to get the message out there, Ken, that there is power in the valuing of people for sure.
I agree. I mean, I think that, you know, there are certainly, this is just me interjecting my opinion, by the way. But there's certainly times, you know, the carrot and the stick philosophies in leadership. I think that they both apply at the right time. Like, there are times when, you know, you've got to be stern. You've got to say, wait a minute, you're taking advantage now. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. That's
right.
One of my favorite quotes.
Right? Yeah, sure.
So, So, can you touch a little on that? When do you know when to use which one?
Sure. And I'll tell you, growing up as a kid, I had consequences, right? So I knew my parents loved me. I had no doubt about that. My parents loved me, but I knew that if I did something that was against their expectations, or if I didn't tell the truth, or I did something that was wrong versus what they told me to do, there was an associated consequence of that. So I'm not even, I'm not even for getting rid of consequences. I'm not for this free workforce that everything's just fine and there's no rules, because you have to be guided and have rules. But what I think is that even if you're doing a disciplinary action with somebody, which is required, when you're doing that disciplinary action, it's really how can you and I prevent this from happening again, because I value you as a team member in my organization. And so this is a consequence because of that action. However, I don't want to have to do this again. So what tools do you need to ensure this doesn't happen again? And how can I help you show that you're important so this doesn't happen again? That's a whole different feel than a consequence with no words, or a consequence because it's a task, or a consequence with a mean spirit behind it. If there's dialogue saying, how can I help you as a leader? And how can I help you prevent this? That's a whole different experience for that team member. And then they also decide, Ken, whether or not they improve themselves. And so that's where the leader's always evaluating and learning the workforce and learning that individual. And if they're not improving, I talk about that's when you're merciful to the organization and knowing that organization, that it's not a good fit for the organization. So there is that association with that for sure. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's required, but it's how we handle and conduct ourselves in that interaction.
So, I mean, 99% of the people who've been on this show are entrepreneurs. And I guess to some degree you are, although you work for a company. I like to talk about, because I think that one of the biggest, how do I word this? I think one of the biggest sicknesses in society today is people stopped dreaming. They stopped believing that there's something better and bigger. Look, I'm going to be real. I'm a Christian, and I believe in the afterlife and heaven and all of that. I do. But I also believe that, we weren't put here to be broke and poor. And,
sure.
and Don Green and I have had some really great conversations about this, actually. I believe that, we're supposed to have abundance in our lives, financially and everything else. So my question, saying all of that, is leading to a question for you. Hopefully you don't believe opposite of that, or this is going to be a bad question. But what do you think stops? Because look, I've been homeless as an adult, and I've been wealthy as an adult. And I'm here to tell you that wealthy is way better.
Sure.
Okay. So people that say money is not the, answer to everything, I kind of disagree. It will make you happy. Even if you're really, really miserable, if I handed you $100 million check that was good and it's yours, you're going to feel happier, even if it's for a fleeting moment. So I think that people are missing out on what's actually possible in life. And you're dealing with all of these employees in these various hospitals. Is there anything you do to help people dream and be bigger and think bigger and have more in life?
Yeah, so I want to get jazzed up about this, I believe, a little bit, because I'll tell you, I've been that guy. I've not been homeless, but I've been that guy that has seen so much more potential in myself.
Yeah.
And then I get excited about it, and then the energy goes away. And then I'm kind of stale for a while. And then I get turned on again to things that I feel like that I know are out there for me. And whether somebody fails me, or I invest in a program that doesn't work, or things like that, then I lose the energy again. But really, what I've been doing lately in the last several weeks is really kind of feeding my own mind on the importance of mindset. Because what I want people who are watching this to realize is that when you were born into this earth, you were born with a design purpose. And people don't often realize that, because whether it be circumstances through their families that have been rough, whether it be relationships that have been rough, those type of things, they don't realize that they were actually put here for a purpose and a reason. And then it's our goal to really define what that is, and things that I've learned about. What are you passionate about? I love watching people that I serve who tell me that they're interested in promotions or interested in this job, and then using the ability and influence that I have to be able to help move them towards what their goal is, and to see people grow in their own careers and their own selves. I love doing that. I love teaching people about mindset, because it's something that I live. It's not something that's just a fluff to teach other people. When I'm dealing with it with myself and I'm finding ways to overcome it with myself, then that makes it even more real to give to other people to say, here's what I've done. I wake up in the morning and I have certain things that I'm affirming to myself. I try to find positive quotes that I give into myself. So when I feed my mind more of the positive things and things that I'm finding that's working versus having the, oh, woe is me type attitude that a lot of people have, life is so much more better, Ken. And even if you're going through a bad circumstance and you continue to do that, you find yourself getting out of that so much better. And then faith is a big part for me as well. And praying to God, who I know cares about me, and knowing that he's walking in this journey with me because he created me, he designed my purpose. And so when I'm saying to him, I want to be a speaker, or I want to be this, or I want to be that, and things come into fruition in my life, I know he cares about what I want. So there's going to be life things that happen to us, but knowing that I'm walking with my creator and knowing that he has my best interest in sight, that's what I used to encourage other people. You are designed, you're here for a purpose, and mindset a lot of people deal with. So you're not just by yourself. Oh, you're not the woe is me, and nobody else has ever had that happen. There are a lot of woe is me out there, but people have found ways to feed the positive in themselves and then realize that they are designed for something great.
Amen. I agree. I because I'm huge on this, and I always tell people, pray for God's will. Don't ask God to, like, I just think, God has it. Like, he knows already. Like, he's got it. I don't need to beg him to change his mind.
Sure. No, absolutely.
I think that's just silly to even think that that's a possibility.
Yeah.
So, you pray for God's will. It's good. It's what's supposed to happen. And so I love everything that you're saying. Before we wrap all this up, I want to say, first off, go get a copy of this book. It's not a huge book. It's an easy read. Mercy Leader, Transforming People with Mercy by Dr. Jeff Radford. Do you have a copy of it there that you can hold up?
Yes.
So here, I'll give you full screen so you can show it to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's the book. So make sure you go. Where is there a website or anything, Jeff?
They can visit my website at drjeffradford.com. I'm currently working with someone to continue to improve that experience. But everybody loves Amazon, so they can definitely find Mercy Leader on Amazon for sure. It's available there. And I'd love I see the website there. I'd love for you to email me if you want to contact me and have further discussion. And that's at drjeffradford@gmail.com as well. So send me an email, look me up on the website. If you feel led to buy the book, then I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that as well. And you see my social media, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, like all of us are. But look me up at Jeff Radford. I'd love to communicate with you. It's just me. I don't have anybody else communicating. When you reach out to me, I'll reach back out to you because I love that interaction with people.
What would you tell everybody? Pretend for a minute. And Grammy Jan, her name's Janet. She says, "Great interview with a big heart." So before we wrap up here, I want you to pretend for a moment that you have a microphone in your hand and you're talking to all 8 billion people on planet Earth at one time. And there's a lot of insanity going on, not just in the United States, but around the world. There's some bad, nefarious people and bad things happening. What would you say to all 8 billion people at one time to give them hope?
Yeah. No, that thank you for the opportunity, Ken. And what I would say to you is that there is hope. That don't let the diversity, division, hate, and anger define who you are. And if you tap into who you are, which is you're not designed to be angry, you're not designed to hate, you're not designed to do evil, that's not your purpose. if you actually tap into who you are and the design for you, that is, we should love one another. Martin Luther King Jr. says this: whom you want to change, you must first love. That's the basic. And so if we incorporated love in our life and be kinder to people, that would go a tremendous way to change the world. If you're tired of the way the world is, which I am, I'm not happy with the state of the world, the state of our country. I'm not happy with that. And so I'm on this mission, and I hope you would join me on this mission to show people that they're cared about. And I want to tell you that you're cared about. Even right now, if you don't feel like you're cared about, I want to tell you, I don't know your name, but I care about you. There's somebody in this planet out of that 8 billion people that you're listening to right now that cares about you, because I do. I care about you. And I want to see you do the best that you can do. And so if we incorporate more care and more love and compassion and forgiveness, which is huge, into this world, it does not have to be this way. So don't let the circumstances around you and around the world define who you are, because that's not who you are. Change the world. Come with me, come with Ken, come with other people, and change the world and make it a better place to live, because it can be.
I agree. Amen again. And the whole church said,
Amen.
Amen. I love it, man. That's beautiful. You got to start with you. Start with
You
you,
got to
and
start
then
with
go
you.
out and show compassion and
Yeah.
love for others. So I love
I
that.
think people too, Ken, just to add to that, people have to stop letting other people define them.
Yeah,
Right?
I agree.
When you don't even
Yep.
know why you go to work, you have this idea of just to support your family, but you have no goals and dreams. That's not you. That's not who you are. Or when other
Nope.
people say you can't do it and you just stop, but you're still passionate about it, that's not who you are. So don't let people define you, and don't let this world define you. You go define the world and define your circumstances, because you have the power within inside of you.
Amen. I agree. Listen to the
Let's
guy. He
go for the
knows what he's
second hour. I
talking
mean, I'm
about.
ready. Let's go for the second
Yeah,
hour.
let's go. That's funny. Dr. Jeff Radford, I so appreciate you, your energy, bringing your wisdom to the audience here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing. Everybody watching, go to drjeffradford.com. I'm sure the book is linked on there. If it's not, just go to Amazon and look up Mercy Leader by Dr. Jeff Radford, and you'll find it there, and grab a copy of it. And thank you all for watching and sharing. And if you shared this out, there's extra bonus points for you somewhere. I don't know where, but and if you didn't, you there's still time for you to redeem yourself and go
Yes,
ahead and share this out. So thank you very much. And my wife is watching. She says, great interview. Thank you, Dr. Jeff.
thank
We
you.
appreciate you. We appreciate the work that you're doing and who you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, everybody, for watching and your support.
Yeah. So I'm going to end the live stream, but Dr. Jeff, stay with me. And I promise I'll be back on with you. Thank you to everybody. Have an awesome day. And we will see you all soon. Share this out. Come on, share it out. Thank you. See y'all later.